G'day, lads. Welcome to the Greencast, a podcast by me, Mr. Greentext, where I usually ramble to myself in a bedroom like a bloody madman. However, this is not one of the episodes, as I'm joined today by an old school friend named Robbie.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very excited just to be here.
Yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to this podcast. Now, I'll be honest, we haven't, talked that much, particularly at school, but mostly I've just been, keeping sort of loose sort of contact and watch over you through, a lot of your online social media sort of channels. And particularly, one of the first videos that sort of caught my attention was, a lot of, your guitar, spiritual sort of, live streams. Do you want to, briefly explain what those sort of things are about?
I really love music. For me, it's a lot of it's like a medicine for my soul, really, and I've understood how much music has improved my quality of life, just in really simple ways, and I just love being able to share that through the platforms of social media and so on.
Yeah. There was another particular video as well that also just caught me off guard. It was I couldn't find it when I was looking for it last night. It was you were down the beach. And all of a sudden, you wander into a sewer, and then start also singing. What was that about? And also what sort of languages do you sing in? Because also I was quite interested by that.
That's something called light language, that is, and the reason I chose the pipe, honestly, was just for the reverb. That is the pure reason for it, because it just sounded good to be in there. It sounded like a really open space, and I just liked that. And it just so happened to be there, and it was close to where I was living, so that was why the location there just kind of happened. But the the more on the dialects are more of my higher self, I think, is what I call it anyway, and it's the multi-dimensional part of my consciousness speaking through. So it's a lot of it's just packets of information that the English language has a bit of a clunkiness in trying to express. And so some of it is just letting my intellectual self get out of my own way and allow my more quantum energies to come through, and sometimes that's really unexpected and does funny things, but it's kind of a process of surrender with it sometimes.
Yeah, right. Now, you said light language is has its benefits over the clunkiness of English language. We briefly sort of talked about before about light language and light code and that sort of stuff. Do you want to just briefly explain how you go about one goes about sort of learning light language?
I think a lot of it is removing filters, because for the most part we already kind of have it with us at some level, and it's kind of thinking outside of the box, shedding layers, and then surrendering, and then just kind of feeling into the truth of the heart space, and being present there, and speaking through the heart, I think.
Right. So it's not a typical sort of language which is here's a set out alphabet and here's how you say this particular word. It's kind of just no. As it comes out.
Pretty much. It's nothing English language or any kind of usual dialects we know. It doesn't really have characters. You can write light codes, you can sing light codes, you can even dance them. There's it's kind of a limitless expression, I think. So it's we can't put it into the linear boxes which we've used for most of our languages we know it.
I feel also when you're describing it just comes from the heart and that sort of stuff, I feel that's the sort of thing that our very early ancestors would have spoken, early cavemen. Obviously the English language wasn't around during then, and they obviously hadn't built that sort of cognitive function to even build a language. So I feel something like that just coming from the heart, or even just letting it flow through you, something like that would be very much the sort of early origins. This is sort of my interpretation, I think.
I very much agree with that in a sense. Just for the fact that it seems the consciousness, well, it just kind of is, but we get to experience it in our own unique way. And I've just from listening to lots of people's light language, some of them have different energies in much the same way as we're all completely unique beings, and we're all our own I don't know, like creators, I suppose, of our own experience, and we kind of create the life that we want, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. It's like a completely different, it's a factor of it. And so yeah, I do think it is like related to like the deeper parts of ourself. Yeah.
So, what I'm also sort of interested in is how do you get into this sort of stuff? Like, what sort of happened? Because like I remember at school, you're like, I mean, yeah, you're a pretty chill guy beforehand too, but like, I mean, this is the first time I'm experiencing this sort of stuff and light code and a lot of like spiritual sort of stuff is like through your sort of experiences as well. So how did you come across this sort of stuff?
Well, it kind of makes me happy to hear, but where I kind of like learned from it, I just had like it was a couple years in my life where everything was falling apart, and it was like that whole like tower moment where it was just like existential crisis big time, and then it just felt like I had so many layers just like ripped off my soul, and I just like felt bare. And then from there it was just kind of like I didn't feel like I fit into the social norm anymore. I didn't feel like I could continue to live my life by the rules in which I'd been handed, so I decided to start thinking about what laws I choose to govern my life, and rather to choose the universal laws and prefer them to like the laws of like man and such. So it just kind of like happened. I started doing it on my own, not like really in depth. I just kind of like took the lid off, or just got to the tip of the iceberg and was like, oh, there's something to this.
Yeah.
And then I don't really remember, like, but I kind of got connected with other people that started doing it, and then I saw someone else do it, and I was like, I do that too. And I just kind of connected with them, and then I shared with them, and they shared with me, and as our like frequencies interacted, we started to create something new. We started to learn off each other, and it continued to evolve, and like and our intuitions continued to develop, and we started to realize that a lot of the light language we did were like transmissions and such, to help with like the multidimensional aspects of our spirits, like helping each other from beyond the veil. And then it's like the light language is kind of like the modality or the medium of expression, the frequency which that's transported on.
Right. So there's a lot from that. I'm sort of interested in sort of like the multi-dimensional aspect of this sort of stuff. Like, I mean, like, I'll be honest, I haven't done like that much in-depth research of that sort of stuff. Like, sure, I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, which he's very much like a proponent of these sort of like these mediums. Like, mostly his is sort of just through like weed and like mushrooms and that sort of stuff to reach that sort of next dimensional state. But what are your sort of like experiences with like the next like multi-dimensional like state or level?
It's awesome. Like what I know is going to like continue to happen like in our consciousness as individual beings, and then as a collective, is like magnificent, and it really is. And I think like a big step for us in like speaking as the collective us is like realizing the innate divinity that lives within each of us in our cellular structure. That's going to be like a focal point of what's to come, is our DNA and what it means and where it came from and what we want to do with it and what it actually is. The DNA is going to be like a focal point of this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So say like DNA would be like your sort of like your focal point, and it's like almost a sort of like, I mean, the first thing you say with like DNA, especially like, I think you sort of briefly mentioned like past sort of like memories and that sort of stuff. Like the first thing that comes to mind with that is like Assassin's Creed, where it is like quite literally the interpretation of experiencing memories through your past DNA and that sort of stuff.
I love that concept. I have myself personally been through past life regressions, and to me it was like the experience of literally like being there, but also being aware of where I was in my like grounded reality and aware of what was going on, but also like very strong like intrinsic connection to like another place in space and time. And for me, the experience was like a healing experience, because it was like past life and ancestors, because it's like in a way, like indirectly, we are our own ancestors, and we like our own children in a way, because like time and space isn't linear, and the progression of such is not linear. So for me, it was like I had like another lifetime in this specific one where I had like been a warrior and been killed in battle. And in this past life regression, I had to experience what it was like to be smacked in the side of the face with an axe and then go into the forest and die by a tree. And that was a life-changing experience. You don't kind of get that every day.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was incredibly difficult, but it was so worth it. Because to me, it was kind of like having a like a drone going on in the background. It's like if you and I were just trying to talk, and then there was like a tone, just like just constantly, and it's like you have to like, I can't really hear you over that noise kind of thing. And that's to me what it felt like, having like the ancestral trauma trapped in my DNA, I suppose. So I had to go into that experience and kind of give myself a good clean, I suppose, to kind of, because it was like the emotional part of that needed healing. Because as you can imagine, like that experience of like being smacked with an axe and then going to die is pretty emotionally tough.
Yeah.
And I had to go through the aggression to like heal it, to heal myself now, like heal my ancestors to heal myself. So it's like, as I heal myself in this state that I am, I heal my ancestors, and that also means that my children and children's children won't have to experience it. So it's kind of like I am like the one that stops it and says, this energy doesn't get perpetuated anymore. It stops with me.
Right. So it's like you're the one that sort of dealt with like all of those past ancestors' stress. And like once that's like sorted, like, oh, cool. No one else has to worry about it in my like family tree now.
Essentially, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I'm also kind of interested, say, like, I'm very much, like, sort of, like, agnostic and open to a lot of this sort of stuff. I'm very sort of interested about, like, that whole, like, reliving that past life, and especially, like, that warrior story was, like, really fucking cool, I'm not gonna lie. But how would you best describe, or even, like, show someone how they would be able to access that sort of past life?
It is something that is very sacred. And we are sacred. Our souls are so very sacred, and the magic of it is the pure intent to like set the space and be like, this, well, as an example, just hypothetically, like to say like, oh, in this space is my pure intent to go through this experience so that I can heal. Sometimes you don't always know, you don't know what the experience is going to be, but even just to have the pure intent to heal itself is very potent. And can kind of like open up so many avenues. Yeah. Did I answer the question? What was the question?
How best in your own like way do you go about accessing these past like life memories?
Okay. The Akashic is like a field where all of the experience that we've had are stored. Is kind of like a multi-dimensional recorder that records everything, and we can access that. Meditative states usually are like the best way to do it, though I'm not condoning the use at all, but psychedelics can have an effect, and if used properly in the right setting with the right support, can be a medicine. Though at the same time, if anything is used, disrespectfully, can have harmful effects. So it's all about personal choice. Everyone has their own free will on what they choose to do. But I have had some experience like with psychedelics that have like opened me up in ways that are not linear, that I couldn't point in a direction in the 3D kind of reality of saying, oh, it's right here, this is what happened, or this is like, I can't like show you in the physicality. It's more like a spiritual energy, like a doorway that was unlocked, and then like choosing to like go through that door as well to find like a part of myself. And sometimes I'll have like a meditation when I do these kind of things, and to me, like in my visualization, it's like a big building, and then I'll go into this big building, and then I like follow my intuition to go to certain rooms, and in these certain rooms, certain things are just going on, and I think that's like within my psyche and within my consciousness, certain things are happening. So in these meditations, I've had like a couple of different experiences. One of my more favorable ones was like going into this room through this meditation, and then just like kind of was like I stepped into my own body. Like I opened the door and it's like I was already there, but I stepped into myself as like becoming aware of that experience. And then in this specific one, I was sitting there playing the piano in this meditative state, and then it was like I could play the piano like as if it was just like with the like the fluency of me talking. Then even like in this state, I was just like imagining melodies in my head, and my hands were just playing them. And then I became like lucid of this. Then I was like, oh, what if I do this? And then you're just like, you're just like pressing like silly notes. So I was like, holy crap, I can actually interact with this thing in real time. And so that's just like one experience. And then I had like another experience where I just went into this room and like dropped into myself. But then in this like state, it was just like the deepest like despair that I'd ever felt. And then I was like, nah, screw this. I've had enough of that. I'm not going into that experience again because I don't need to be there. I don't need that experience. I felt it and I want to heal it, but I don't want to like be consumed by that energy anymore. And so then I stepped out of that room, and it was like as soon as I stepped out of that room, I had these like beings of light just surrounding me, just like holding space for me. Like they were literally just like had like the playfulness of children, but were like incredibly intelligent as well, like way more than I was. And I was just like, and they were just like childlike, just holding space for me, like it's gonna be okay. And I'm like, okay, this is an interesting experience. So it's like, with something like that, it's like if I held on to linearity, if I said linearity, 3D reality is all there is, it would probably send me insane. But it's kind of like that surrender that I have to say that there is more in this life than like the linearity. There is multidimensional energies, which I will just admit that I can't always explain, but I can experience. So it's like being able to surrender and allow myself to say, okay, I don't know the answer for this. And because I accept I don't know the answer, I'm not going to go bloody insane looking for something that I'm never going to find. So it's like a lot of it's just like surrendering into like an energy that's already present, and it's like allowing it to like rise up and to not be stomped as it's rising. Like, you know, it's like having like a flower grow and taking care of that flower like as it grows.
Yeah. I think very much like, so with my like sort of experience with this sort of stuff, the best sort of reference that I have, and you were talking about, is sort of like almost like a mental hub that you go to when you like meditate and that sort of stuff. There's a book by a YouTube channel called Corridor Digital where it's called 10 Games You Can Play in Your Head by Yourself. And literally, it's a book that sets out scenarios for you in between like a sci-fi sort of thing or fantasy or whatever. And basically it's just describes like scenarios like you're in a house in a wheat field and there's a shadow that's behind you, but the shadow is a person, and you have to go inside this house and move some stuff around, and then your shadow person has to come in and try and figure out what's been moved, and you sort of have to like experience both of those sort of things, and you kind of just like let yourself close your eyes and then just sort of like meditate and just let it play out in your head. And I feel like that's very much the sort of stuff that you're describing, and you have like this sort of like mental hub as well that you take like trinkets from like your adventures and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's very, very much related, yeah. I haven't heard of this like before today, but I'm certainly going to look into it because it does sound very similar to what I was just saying, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like on Amazon, and you can like order it. It's only like $30 as well. It's pretty cheap. But yeah, I like to keep it in like my bag if I'm like traveling or whatever the hell. If like my phone dies or I'm like bored, I'm like, I'll just read a scenario and then I'll just like go nuts. They're saying that even just like that's how they come up with like, because they're also like a video production company and they make a lot of like short films on YouTube. And they're saying that even just using this book, they've like come up with so many video ideas of just like, let me just go with these set like directions and just let my mind run wild and see what happens.
That's amazing. Like, just wow.
Oh man, let me have a quick look at what else I've got here. Oh, yeah, one of the other videos that I found while having a look through like a lot of your social media stuff as well. Obviously you were speaking in that sort of like light code language as well, but you were like outside also like expressing through like dance as well in like this lightning storm as well.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, what was like that about, and what particularly made you want to like go and express yourself during like a lightning storm?
For me, I just when like a big lightning storm comes, like I feel it in the air. There's like it just like feels like I just have this like electricity. It's like I tune into the storm, and then when that happens, I just get so restless that I can't sit still. I just like have this energy that I need to just do something with, and it's so like passionate that I just can't sit down and just let it pass. It's like I need to do it now. And because I feel like so passionate about it, like dancing is like the full like body expression of it, and it allows me to just kind of feel in a way that I can't speak, and to dance in a way in which I'm free from like any limitations of saying, oh, I have to move this way, I have to do that. It's just like, no, just let it go. And then as I like go into that state, I feel my awareness is more than just my body. I feel like a part of the earth. I feel like I am Gaia, and I am Gaia dancing for Gaia. And then I feel like, the sky as well. And I just kind of, it's just like a dance of interconnectedness and just enjoyment really. And it just expression of energy, which I feel is very spiritual and sacred to who I am.
Very much so. That was actually one of the other things that I had written down here that I wanted to talk to you about, is the whole... I've seen you mention Gaia a few times as well, and it sort of hit weirdly close to me, because again, like going back to the Assassin's Creed stuff, I'm currently playing through the latest DLC of that, and it's very much in like Greek mythology and that sort of stuff, so I'm like deep in that hole at the moment, and Gaia is literally the being that birthed the Titans, which then birthed said Olympians and that sort of stuff. So I'm wondering how Gaia sort of plays into your spirituality for you.
Well, Gaia, I understand, is Mother Earth, is the whole planet, and it's like Gaia is every single cell of life on this planet, unconditionally, and that is what Gaia is. Mother Earth is like, she is like the smallest microbes to like the biggest whales, and she is that consciousness which is through all of that. So there's something that is kind of significant. There's like 3 main grids that the planet Earth has going. One of them is the Gaia grid, which is every single bit of biological life, every like celled organism. And then we have the magnetic grid. As we know, all life has like electromagnetic fields, and the whole planet has an electromagnetic field, and the sun has an electromagnetic field, and the electromagnetic field of the sun sometimes has solar flares, which are massive electromagnetic ejections that can sometimes hit the earth, not hit, but can surround. And so our electromagnetic field of the earth is connected with the entire universe, is probably the easiest way to put that. So we have the Gaia grid, which is all life, we have our magnetic grid, and then we have our crystalline grid. And so crystalline kind of means to like retain vibration, like have like memory, and to remember, and to be able to replicate vibrations. As we know, like our watches and computers all have like quartzes and what all the other stuff. They have like satellites have like different crystals to vibrate the signals back to Earth. Because I know like some telescopes or satellites have like sapphire. Some have like ruby. I'm not completely like, that's not like my subject that I'm completely familiar with.
Yeah.
So it's like I know that they all kind of like flow into this one thing, as just like as we're here now as beings. We have our Gaia, which is like our body, all our cells, and we have our electromagnetic grid, which kind of connects us to all it is. Then we have like our crystalline, which kind of is our like vibratory consciousness. So it's like those 3 things kind of are one and flow together.
Right. Again, you know what very much it sounds like you described? And from Star Wars, you just basically described the Force.
I am with the Force is with me.
That one thing going through everything else that connects every living thing. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is almost interesting seeing like, I mean, like again, like I went down a lot of holes, especially within like Star Wars and the Force, and even like the Metachlorians, which is like the sort of the beings that connect you to the Force, are actually inspired from a real life cell that the name sort of escapes me at the moment. But yeah, it's very much based on a reel, so it has a lot of that sort of same properties to it. And that, again, that sort of very much like interests me. The fact that, like, yeah, a lot of this is sort of like based in reality, even though it does, you know, from a galaxy far, far away and ever, it is very much sort of grounded in our reality.
Certainly, and it's really interesting what can come up from our imaginations, which can actually like relate to like the inner workings of our reality and such, and have something like the Force, but then like have it be able to translate into like real life. So I just love seeing like the interconnectedness of things and just like the flow of life, really.
Yeah. So I'd like to go back a little bit to like your sort of interpretation, or even your experience with like crystals and that sort of stuff. Like you're saying that like, yeah, a lot of crystals are used with like satellites and sort of stuff to harness like the vibrational energy. What's your sort of personal relationship with crystals, and how do you use them from day to day?
Well,
if you use them.
I do use crystals. I do have a fair amount of them, and I have like a variety of them, and every one is like is unique in a way of like each human is unique, and sometimes like some crystals I just have like a stronger connection with others, which is kind of normal, and I really like stuff like tourmaline. That's one of my favorites. It's like it's a black stone. And it's like all about like grounding and like transmuting energy. It's very, very earthy, very like down in the dirt kind of energy to transmute it. So like with this one, I kind of like visualize myself like giving it like an energy sometimes that can be, it's like helpful if I have an energy that needs to be transmuted that's kind of hard to deal with, and I was like, this crystal can help me. It can like take the hardness or the, you know, what makes the energy difficult for me, and then kind of transmute it, do some work with it, and then give it back something else. And then like a crystal like amethyst, for example, is like very like crown, like, which is like head consciousness, and is like good for like bringing clarity. And such crystals like aventurine are like good, like resonate with like the heart chakra, or like depending on what colors it is. So it's like that thing that Nikola Tesla said, like energy, frequency, vibration. And so like crystalline structures are vibrating all the time. I don't remember like the exact number, but it's like a quartz crystal is like at some like billions or trillions of, I don't know, I might be exaggerating, but like a massive amount of like cycles per second. So it's like quartz crystals is pretty much like crystallized or solidified light, really. And like our souls in essence are like our light. So it's like a crystallization or solidified version of like a consciousness, just like a pure consciousness. So crystals are conscious beings as we are. So some of them hold wisdom, so you can sit and meditate and share wisdom with them. Some are more like protective stones to help you deal with tough times or whatever. And some are just like crystals that just love a lot, and you just have these crystals and they just permeate love through your field. So there's just a massive variety of them, and there's something for everyone, really.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like each crystal has its own like sort of personality almost that can sort of like help you like with like, I mean, you said like chakras. I've like sort of a vague sort of understanding and that sort of stuff. Actually, you want to go into that? Like, explain to me like what is a chakra as well. There's a couple other like things you sort of like offhandedly said. I'm like, don't know what that means. I'll have to ask him about that as well.
Okay. So for like the standard model, we have like seven chakras, and they each like resonate with like a different frequency or a different color or like pitch. And so our like more earthy is like slower vibrations or longer wavelengths, and our higher ones are really fast vibrating. And so like we have like our root, which is our connection to the earth, our connection to physicality is our root, and that's red, which is very primal. You know, we know red's a primal color. It's base. It's our blood. So it's like one of the most base things we have about ourselves. And then we have like the sacral chakra, which is like the womb, the creativity, like the sensitivity, the sensuality, which is like a belly one, which is also like connected to like the umbilical cord even. And that's also related to like water and such. So it's like more intuitively knowing what these energies, what these mean as well. And then above that we have our solar plexus, which is like the center of our chest, just like the center bottom of our rib cage pretty much. And that relates to like the fire, you know, where we feel our willpower, like we feel it from like the center of our chest, and that's why it's like the fire center, the willpower, and like identity and like personality and such, and the core of our being really. And then we have our heart, which is love really, and just so much more with that as well. But like the main point I'm going to say about the heart is love.
Yeah.
And then we get to our throat, which is all about like communication and expression, like talking as well as listening and being able to understand each other. And then we have our third eye chakra next, which is sight and such, but it's also like related to like spiritual abilities and such, like and coherence really, and like clarity of the mind. And it can be really hard to receive visions when your third eye chakra is all like foggy or blocked or just imbalanced. And like visions come a lot easier with like a healthy third eye chakra. And then our crown, which is like our connection to like all that is, it's like the top of the toroidal field. And so that's why it's just open to like the universal energies, and it's like the connection with source, and it's like a speaks in silence. It's heard when there's only space to listen, which is important. So it's like all about understanding, but like the most like purest form of understanding. So it's like the whole spectrum from like red to ultraviolet, and that's just kind of the frequency that we're on. We're not limited to it, but that's like primarily where we are.
Yeah. Again, going back to relating to Star Wars, it almost again sounds a lot like a kyber crystal, which is a type of crystal that has like a giant light spectrum, like you were saying, from like red to even like to black. And when someone is getting a kyber crystal to put into their lightsaber to choose their color and whatnot, the crystal actually chooses the user as well through like vibrational energy as well. And again, like each color very much represents like red, as you're saying, like primal urges, which, you know, you don't really want to sort of like let yourself come out to a degree, and very much so like with the red, and even just like to the purple, or even to ultraviolet with that sort of color, having like that sort of like that inner peace and that sort of stuff as well. And again, that's just like another one of those like weird things that just like, oh,
it actually relates.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah. But a lot of this stuff that you're talking about, and even like we were briefly talking about before, it even just like almost everything sort of like has this sort of like ancestral sort of memories, like through crystals, through to your inner DNA, and even like you're briefly talking to me about like history of like water and that sort of stuff as well. And I'd love to get into that again. Sure.
So it's we know like that the water that's been on our planet has been here for a long time, and we'll leave that bit that's that for now. So it's like as like all the beings and all the creatures that have ever lived on this planet have had to have water, because we know that like all the beings on our earth need water of some capacity to survive. So all the living beings on this planet have passed through water, and by having water pass through them. And like water's got its own memory. You know that whole experiment with like having the snowflakes or the water, and you say different things to the water. Like for example, to like the water, it's like, oh, you're beautiful, and it creates these beautiful snowflakes. So you say fuck you to the water, and the water's all like there and looks gross, like under a microscope kind of thing. And so it's I kind of got lost in that. What was so the water?
Yeah, like just history of water, and just sort of like how that relates to like everything as well.
Yeah. So it's just like kind of like a really like an intuitive consciousness. So it's just the water of the earth remembers as like a collective field. And so like it's a kind of like a bit of a mystical energy as I understand it. But it's like the water remembers who it was, I suppose, and the water, even a raindrop, knows that it's a part of the ocean. Even like a lone little droplet knows that I am the whole ocean. Even if I'm a droplet now, I'm the whole ocean. And that's kind of like a field of that we are all interconnected with, whether we like it or not. Like, even if you're kind of dehydrated, you still got some water in you. Like,
Well, I mean, the body is like, I'm pulling this out my ass and I can't remember the exact thing, but I want to say like the body's 90% water.
yeah, it's some really high percentage
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, with again with like the water and sort of it being like this whole like consciousness. Do you think there'd be a way to sort of like communicate to it and like be enriched by that sort of history, or I know like be open to like sharing its wisdom? Do you think?
I certainly think that's a potential, yeah, and it's a potential that I would love to continue to explore. That even in like a grounded sense, that like I'm made of water and so are you, and so in a way we're like water communicating with itself, and therefore like water creating wisdom with itself. It's like we're already doing it,
Yeah.
even though we can go much deeper into it, but this is still a part of it.
Yeah. God damn. Oh yeah. That was another one of the other things, like going through a lot of your social media stuff as well. And like you don't have to talk about it to a degree if you don't want to, but like you were saying that like when you first sort of got into a lot of this sort of stuff, you were seeking like help from higher dimensional beings. Yeah. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
I'm happy to. This was actually the same. Well, the initial experience was on the same day which I spoke about before, where I said I had the past life regression as the warrior. That was a part of that day for me, and it was a very significant stage in my awakening. It was like a quantum jump start. And so like the warrior healing was just like one of a lot of like past life regressions I did that day. It was like so many layers of just layers and layers. And so there was a lot of just massive amount of spiritual energy on that day. And I remember just like sitting on a rock while I just had all this energy just flowing through my body, like my body was just vibrating, like just in a way I can't currently express that does it any justice. But I was just sitting on this rock by this river in the bush and feeling this intense flowing spiritual energy, and I was having a bit of like an existential crisis. And the experience that I had, like I saw just like this ring, it was just a circle. And it was going around it again and 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 so on. And like some part of my being was like, I'm sick of this. It feels like I'm going around in circles. And it felt like the karmic cycles of reincarnation. It just felt like I was just stuck in a loop of karma, and it just felt like crap. And it was just a circle going around and around. I was just like getting to like this existential boiling point of like, I can't take this anymore. And then I was just like, in my like mind's voice, I was like, if there are higher beings out there, just help me. Will you just help me? And then as soon as like I like reached out to like beyond the veil, they took my hand pretty much, and like this ring, just this ring that was going around in my mind, it just kind of like just started to like just to go up, like spiral upwards. Instead of it being just like a flat circle, it became a spiral to like higher dimensions. And then just that feeling was like just like being picked up and lifted. They're like, you asked us for help, we're gonna help you. And they just like picked my being up and just pretty much just like felt like I was just being lifted and just they were just carrying me. And then at this point, like the spiritual energy was even increasing still then. And nothing can really prepare you for those states. So that's why the surrender is important more than anything. Surrender to like the intuitive intelligence within that already like knows what to do. And as soon as I connected with these beings, they were advanced beyond my comprehension. But they felt like insectoids to me. Like I just got like the sense of just like being in this like multi-dimensional doctor's office, and all these like beings were working on me. They were like, you haven't been looking after yourself, have you? I'm like, no, I haven't. Will you will you help me? And they were I was feeling the energy of myself and also like my ancestors just like healing. And it was like the most incredible like experience. And it took a lot of energy to do that for me, like, you know, as it takes a lot of strength to climb a mountain or something. Like I had, like, metaphorically speaking, I had to put a lot of energy to get there. It doesn't just happen like willy-nilly. You gotta pick yourself up sometimes, or simply ask for help and ask for someone to pick you up.
Yeah.
And So that was important. And as I was in this state, it's like they were telepathically like communicating with me, and I was understanding. They weren't giving me English words. They were giving me like raw understanding, and then it's like they were just putting it already understood in my head, like metaphorically, like regurgitating information, but like it's already chewed up. That kind of sounds like gross, but that's what it was, you know. And they just like, there was just this frequency, and they were like, make this noise, and I just like opened my mouth. I'm not gonna do it too much here, but it was just like this like long drone of just like ah. But like I did that, and like as I continued to do it, they're like, yes, good. They were just like supporting, like, just keep doing that, just keep doing that. And as I continued it, like it grew in like intensity, and then it kind of happened like this thing. It was like the sound was coming out of my voice when I didn't have any like lung breath. Like I was like, I should have run out of breath ages ago, but the sound just kept coming somehow, and it just kind of blew my mind a little bit. And so as I had my mouth just like as wide open as I could get it doing this noise, I got this feeling that they were just like had these instruments in my mouth, and they were like working on my throat. And as they were working on my throat, they were telling me like, this is the era of communication. This point in humanity's evolution, communication is absolutely vital. That is how humanity progresses, evolves, not just survives but thrives. This is the important thing, and that was the most important thing. They were like, the era of communication, which is why they were working on my throat chakra too. And it was after that experience that I started doing light language. I'd never done it before that day, but it's after those multidimensional beings worked on my throat chakra that I started to be able to communicate these multidimensional energies. So it was like an activation for me and giving me the tools in which I can do it now. And so it's everyone has like the potential for this, and even me like communicating with this, I feel like I'm doing what I need to do to say like, hey, I've done this, you can do this too. And it's like being able to like reach through the veil and then have someone like take your hand from the other side, and accepting help from like unseen energies.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Briefly, like going back, it's funny you should mention like insectoids, because there was another man that I was also doing research on, potentially going to do a video on. There's like a whole other separate thing to him, but he has experienced aliens, or his interpretation of aliens, majority of his entire life, and allegedly he'd lost his virginity to an alien. But also his experiences as well, in his way of expression, is painting, and all of his experiences with these beings that he's painted. And through a lot of these sort of stuff, there are a lot of like dawns of light where these insectoid sort of kind of beings are sort of calming him through a lot of these experiences as well. And I thought that was also just interesting that you sort of briefly mentioned these insectoid sort of beings as well.
That's really awesome, yeah. I believe that they're completely real, not in the sense of it's physical and I can touch it with my physicalness, but I know that they exist, and they may not be in my specific frequency of physicality, but they're in their own wavelength, and that's completely like valid and true. Though it's like if you don't like walk into the room or through the door, metaphorically speaking, you're not going to know what's in there or on the other side. So it's like it's like the intent to reach out as well as something that's important. And I know some other people in my life that do connect with the insectoids themselves on like a regular basis, and I know that it helps them, and I know that it's helped me as well. And if it's something that can genuinely help me in a sincere way, then I think that's valid enough for me.
Now, again, seeing like myself seeing like an insectoid sort of being, like I don't know what sort of emotion I'd probably experience, but the first thing I'd probably be sort of like freaked out though. But you were saying that they are almost like a calming sort of beings. Do you think that like almost a lot of saying this sort of stuff, it almost sounds like these are sort of like just maybe even like interpretation of like an alien that has like transcended to like that next level that can only be like communicated through doing things like you were explaining, like almost.
Certainly, yeah. And I think that is very much it, that they're the just transcended beings, and we're kind of like metaphorically like children to them, and they're like just looking after us sometimes, you know? And
Yeah.
that's just nice to acknowledge.
Well, quite literally, even just like you were saying before, even just working on your throat chakra to be able to speak that sort of like that light language, to be able to like communicate through this sort of stuff again.
Yeah. And one of the best things to do for the throat chakra is just speak the truth. Be like authentic in the words that are spoken, and that will empower the throat chakra. Though if we lie or even act in a way that's untrue to our words, that can negatively affect the throat chakra, because it's like having the integrity with the words that you say will strengthen the voice when it's heard, which is something that's important for what we're going to see in the political fields, because as we continue to become more aware of these energies and actually reach out and then embrace them even, our sense of who is acting in integrity is going to be heightened. So just a natural progression of this is our political systems getting more people with integrity in power, because you don't need me to tell you that so many politicians are lacking in integrity at times. And so that's going to be like part of the new paradigm, bringing in people to power that have integrity, and we're going to be able to see it. We're going to be able to notice it. We're going to be able to feel their compassion and be like, yes, I want the compassionate person making the decisions.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's a whole other separate thing that I think, like, especially with, like, politicians nowadays, I think that, like, to be honest, I think there should be, like, a cap of, like, an age that you should be able to run for, like, politicians or whatever. But even just, like, I mean, it's also hilarious that I know more about American politics than Australian politics. It's just how the media's covered over here. But even someone like, you know, like Trump's, like, in his, like, mid-70s, Bernie Sanders is in, like, his, like, late 70s. He had a fucking heart attack, for God's sake, because he's, like, so old. But even, like, I feel like they're just sort of, like, they're at that stage of their life that they can't really fully be invested in this sort of world, or they can't have as much of an understanding as much of like someone even like in their 30s or even like for their 40s could be. And I think there should be like maybe even just like a cap of like an age you are allowed to like serve as a politician.
I would yeah, agree with that in a sense that like with the energy that's coming into the planet, like the new energy is new, and like those that are older have just simply had more time invested into the old energy. And what do we know about the old energy? What have we seen? Just suffering, corruption, deception. I'm not going to go too into it, but that's kind of what it is. And some people are invested in that, saying that that's the way that they think things should be done. But we know that that's not the only way, and that there is a new way of doing things. Even if it hasn't been done before us, we know that we can at least have a go. And even if we don't get it right, we're pointing the arrow to the light in a direction in which we actually want to go. Because simply put, like the old energy is unsustainable, as we've seen, for the fact of the state of our planet has been a expression of the old energy.
Or even the country's fucking completely on fire at the moment.
Yeah, even that too.
But one of the other sort of things that I wanted to talk to you about is even like, have you had that much like other communication with this sort of like high beams apart from like that first like initial like almost like initiation sort of thing? And then it'd be interesting to see like what they would think of just humanity as a whole, knowing like our sort of like history, especially like our, you know, even just like a sort of like recent history with like fucking World War One, World War Two, and just the whole like political system at the moment.
We got to remember that they don't think about us in the way in which we think about ourselves. And though they would probably, like, nobody likes war. well, I like to think, the compassionate ones don't like war. I think
Yeah.
that's probably more accurate. And these higher beings, for the most part, are incredibly compassionate. Like, that is their, like, standard, if you could call it that. Like, compassion is, like, what brings them together and what they're all about. And so it's important to know that these, like, higher beings, these transcended beings, love us. Like, they are from the state of existence which is, like, unconditional love. That's where they are. That is what they operate from. It's who they are. They are beings of unconditional love, and they look at us with love. And so it's like they want to support us, and they want to help us. They want to see us do better, but at the same time, where some of humanity still has, like, angry teenager energy, I'm gonna say, and sometimes it's unsafe for them to interact with certain beings or certain people because they can, like, pull into their frequency. But I'm not too sure on that last bit, but that was kind of, like, more like, I think, but I'm not certain on that one.
So it sounds like they almost, like, they've evolved past, like, having the need for, like, this sort of, like, negative aspect of, like, emotions as well.
Yeah, I think it's like they're all, like, the unity, like they've integrated all parts of themselves, whereas, like, honestly, in our state we have some parts of ourselves which are still unconscious, and fuck, I don't know, if they're unconscious, I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah, they're on that whole other level. We can't really fully, like, begin to, like, understand it.
Yeah, it's some of these beings are just beyond our comprehension at this point, which I'm okay to admit, because they truly are. And it seems like in our, like, spiritual maturity, humanity's in, like, kindergarten. We're still discovering things. We're still learning these things. We're still, like, beginning to open the books. So I think that's one thing that's important to realize, where, we're the new kids on the block, we're the fresh ones,
Yeah. One of the things that I know I'm going to get comments about, and I know I'm probably going to have to ask, is, like, what's your sort of, like, experience with drugs?
I'll be honest, I do smoke weed. I've dabbled in psychedelics, and I haven't really touched, like other drugs, because they just don't really, like, interest me, because
I get that.
Yeah, I was more with the intent to, like, to heal myself, to open up my psyche, to learn, to enrich my life, and stuff like hard drugs just aren't on my to-do list, I should say. They're not. I don't want any part in them, because I've seen them fuck up other people's lives, and I don't want that for myself. I want to enrich my life.
Yeah.
So I've tried LSD, like, a fair few times, and had some really full-on experiences with that has, like, I've had what some people would call bad trips, but that was because I've just, like, had to go through that. Like, the experience of duality is still here, and even though I've had some, like, incredibly difficult and, like, painful experiences, like, on certain psychedelics, I've also had the most beautifully fulfilling, transcendental, loving experiences too. I've done mushrooms a fair few times, and I've done DMT. I did DMT kind of recently, and that was a massively significant step for myself in just, like, the complete and, like, true acceptance of the quantum multidimensionality that is the essence of our existence, that is more than we've been led to believe that we are. And these substances helped me in a way that was loving, and because I loved myself when I did it. I didn't take the drugs as, I'm going to self-destruct and take drugs, and that wasn't like that for me. Like, I've experienced that in the past, but then, like, even on the trip, I was like, wait a second, I don't want to do this to myself. And on the DMT trip that I had, like, I had a big amount, like, the one that gave it to me was like, this is enough for about, like, 2 or 3. And I'm going to be honest, I took the whole thing in, like, one session. I had 3 hits of DMT. I had the first hit, and then as soon as I had the first hit, there was a voice in my head that was like, 3, 2, 1, and you're down. And as soon as it was you're down, I just fell onto the bed and just, like, went into this trance. And in this state, these transcendental beings were like in front of me and they were just communicating with me. But the thing is, like, these beings were making like 100 different facial expressions in a second, and I understood it in that state. It was like, yes, I know, I understand, I completely understand, because it just completely like bypassed my logical mind, and then like my deeper mind was like, I understand, I'm remembering. And so when I had my DMT trip, these beings told me that you're going to do this 3 times. You're going to do this experience 3 times, and once I was kind of like, it was very sacred. Like, the whole DMT experience was like sacred, like really. And these beings are like, all right, there's 3, and then I did this thing each time where it was kind of like after the initial like dropping into that space, and then when I'm like, all right, I'm in this space, let's do what I came here to do. I kissed like my palm, I put it on my third eye, and kissed my other palm. No, I kissed my right palm, put it on my third eye, and then like put my hands in prayer position and kind of bowed. Then as soon as I did this, it was just like this ball of light just opened and just kind of like just wrapped itself around me and through my DNA. And it was like these beings were just working on me. And because they're transcendental beings, and I was just like, I surrender, just do what you got to do. And then they were just like multi-dimensionally working on me, and there's no sensation that I've ever felt otherwise. So it was unique. So on the first hit, I took that, and it was like very like, this is the first, we're going straight in, we're doing it, number 1, we're through. And so the first was like breaking that like barrier, like it was like a sound barrier, it felt like. And then so I did the 3 hits of DMT within the space of about 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so. I didn't really get out of it each time. I just kind of went deeper into it, because like I knew that like I have three. The beings told me you got to do this 3 times. So, and then the second time I did it, it was more intense. It was like the first, but amplified, and they were working at a deeper level on different things. And like through this, I started like saying things to myself, and like one of the most significant ones, after I'd passed through so many layers of just like these dense emotions and all this energy of struggle, was just like, I love myself, like I love me, like I love me who I am, like. And that was important, because they were like, why don't you love yourself? Like, what is there to like not love about who you are? Like, do you not see who you are? Like, that's what these beings are like. They're like, do you not understand who you are? And that's what it is. Like, you remember like your divinity, remember like who you are. And that was just what they were just doing, just like reminding me. And then on the third time, this was like the smallest hit, but it was significant still, because I'd already had it in my system, of course, but it was kind of like that last one to
Yeah.
And then the third one was just like the most peaceful, most tranquil, just like absolute, just like, even if I noticed stuff that would have completely bothered me or could have perhaps sent me into like a panic attack, in this state I was just like, the whole universe is perfect, everything is fine, all is well within my soul, and I just completely just trust the universe. Just like this like most like, I know that everything is going to be okay, and even if I tried to fuck things up, I couldn't. So I just know it's going to be okay. And just in that state, I was just like innocence and purity. Like, I just felt like my inner child was just like loving. Like, I loved myself, and I really allowed myself to feel my own love. And I think that was one of the most important things I took from that whole experience. And then afterwards, I relate this like the energy of what I would say is the, in my case, the Trinity, of like the numbers of 1, 2, and 3. The 1 is like a masculine number, the 2 is like feminine, like the mother, and then 3 is like the child. So that was like a uniting of my masculine, feminine, and child aspects, where the first one to come in was like the masculine, where it's just like, it was very masculine energy, and then the second one was like my feminine energy, and then the third one's like my child energy. And then at the end of the third, I saw the this sacred symbol of it's like a witch's knot of the 3, the triquetra, was like flowing between each other, and each of these parts of the experience were like an arm or like a line of that. And then at the end, that all connected together, and it was like being like bestowed gifts upon me. And when I was in the third one, I intently connected with Pleiadian beings. I didn't see them with my physical eyes, of course. They didn't like just pop into the room or nothing, but like in my being, I was like, I reached out to them, and I was like, I'm here. Like, they're watching over me, and I asked them for help, and they just kind of stepped forward, and I'm like, yes, what is it? And I just kind of like put my hands out into open space, and I was like, just exchange energy with me. And then as soon as I did that, it was like I felt like these beings, like I put my hands out and they put their hands like onto mine.
Yeah.
And it was just like I was exchanging energy to them, and they were giving energy to me, and it was like they were just blessing me and just cleaning my energy fields and such, and just all I just felt was just unconditional love. And so in that like quantum state, that sacred field, I was like bringing different beings in, and it was like, I want to communicate with you, I want to commune with you, I want to connect with you. So in the room that I did this, I have this this kind of like flag of the Green Man, and it's just like this like nature being that represents like the masculine connection to the earth, the masculine connection with nature. And like in this state, it was like I knew the flag wasn't moving or anything like in a way that I was like, oh, I'm tripping nuts. Like it was completely fine. Like the flag was there, but like in my third eye, I could see the being that it represented. And I allowed myself to be blessed by the Green Man, this being of nature. And then as soon as I was blessed by this being, I was just like, I just want to sit on the earth. I didn't until until I'd finished up and everything. I did eventually go commune with Gaia, and it was so just delicate. The energy that she gave me was just like, protect this, hold on to this, treat this well. So like, yes, I'll treat that well. And I was like connecting with other beings. So I like the Pleiadians, which are the race that seeded the earth. So part of our DNA is like earth DNA, and then a part of our DNA is like from the stars that we were gifted by the Pleiadian beings, that they like genetically engineered humanity. And what sets humanity apart from every single creature on this earth, what humanity has, is two things. One, the divine spark. We were given the source creator spark of consciousness. And then free will. So we all have our own free will, and we all make our own choices, because we are allowed to be the arbiter, or like the decider, the decider of our experiences on a level which is beyond this realm, but also of it, and seeing that we have the free will of all of our sovereign beingness. And so like you could completely choose to just like not have any of these experiences whatsoever. If you wanted to, you could just completely avoid it, and your free will would be respected. But on the other hand, if you wanted these experiences and you were looking for them, and you really, really wanted them, you would find them, because that would be like the honor of your free will, the honor of your sovereignty, of your pure intent even. And we are honored by spirit. Spirit will always honor every single one of us, no matter what. So no matter what, we always have like the force is the force of unconditional love,
Yeah.
And that's what we're all a part of it.
Do you think it's almost like, just to play like devil's advocate here, do you think it's almost like a placebo effect, that like, I want this experience, and so then your mind kind of just like gives it to you?
I have considered that, yeah. But then just some things just happen, and I'm like, I wish that was a placebo. I truly do. But I just can't deny it. I think just because the synchronicity of it, that's what I find. The synchronicities to me are like confirmations and such, and even like synchronicities between people that don't even like know each other in physicality, but then having synchronicities between that, and a lot of the synchronicities that I experience are just so like personalized for me that I couldn't describe the significance to someone else. But to me, I'm like, I can't deny that. Like, to me, it rings true in my heart more than just like the placebo effect. Though I also, to do with the placebo effect, our consciousness is powerful. once we realize how powerful the human consciousness is, even if it takes generations of hundreds of generations, I'm not putting a time limit on, but like humanity will just transcend the need for technology as like computers and such. We will transcend that, but maybe not this life, maybe on the next one. I don't know that part, but I know there's it's a potential. It's a potential.
I mean, I almost have the sort of like the almost like sort of like opposite sort of like mindset where I think like we're destined to be intertwined with technology and that sort of stuff, and even like I'm very much into like cyberpunk sort of stuff and a lot of those sort of lines, and even like one of my favorite concepts was from a show called Altered Carbon, where you have your consciousness be implemented into like this what they call a disc, which is this thing that slots into the back of a neck, and basically the body is just that. It's just, they call it like skins. Like it can be like taken like, oh, pop it in here, and like it doesn't matter if your body's dead, you just take this stack and put it in another place. And because of that as well, with their technology, you know, capitalism is its thing, and even like the rich people, they have literally their consciousness like backed up to like the cloud, so they're literally like immortal, like living forever through like their like consciousness, through their sort of like evolution with technology.
That is interesting though.
Or even like, I don't know, I find very much like again, like I do like a lot of 3D printing and that sort of stuff, and like, you know, someone loses a limb, literally just print yourself like a new hand and what sort of stuff like that. And I think like very much like, again, like I was saying before, like we're very much, humanity isn't going to be intertwined with technology through even like, you know, Papa Elon Musk taking us to Mars, or taking us like throughout the solar system, and, you know, spreading us throughout space and around that sort of stuff. But yeah, even just like, you know, cybernetic enhancements, or even just like doing things that the body can't. And I'm sure it will definitely have like, will evolve like a consciousness mind like to the next level and that sort of stuff, and, you know, people being like open to a lot of this sort of stuff, and, you know, not just putting it away just like, he probably just fucking smokes weed, he doesn't know what he's talking about and whatever. But yeah, I think very much so humanity, especially like, you know, a lot of people consider us cyborgs nowadays, because we literally like, we're connected, whether we like it or not, with like our phones or whatever, and like literally having like an artificial intelligence like Google or whatever the hell just been like, hey Google, what is this answer, and everything, I just activated it then. But yeah, even like people today are considering us like cyborgs, so that like this doesn't leave our side at all times, so we're always going to be connected. I think, yeah.
I still think that's like completely, that is true in its way. And I think it's also like the, you know, the movie Avatar, the James Cameron Avatar.
Yeah.
I think that is something that like that plays into it too, and I like the movie because it like very like elegantly captures the duality which we are experiencing as well. We have like some like humans that just want to be like the Na'vi and go live and have the connection with spirit, and then we have the jarheads that kind of like to blow things up and like profit. And I notice something that like the idea of profit doesn't make sense to me, because everything that we have got, even the very cells of our body, we get from the earth, and we will eventually pass, and everything we've ever had will be returned. So it's like you can't leave this earth with, you know, we have to give everything back. So the idea of profit doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I just think that just came to mind for some reason.
I mean, like, I think, like, profit definitely has, like, I mean, obviously, you know, there's definitely levels to it. Like for me, for example, like, with my 3D printing stuff, and, you know, like, I turn a profit on that, and I make, like, that's the majority of my income is through that sort of thing, not so much through YouTube anymore. Thanks, YouTube, you cunts. But, I don't know, I feel like there's definitely degrees, like, you know, definitely, like, you know, suits, corporate guys that are just, like, fucking over people in like China and child slavery and that sort of stuff. Like, obviously, like, there's definitely 2 degrees of like profit that I think's bad, but I think someone even just, you know, gaining some like money to live. But I think like very much, and I think you very much agree, like you, especially in this life, if you want it like worthwhile, you want to be able to do something that you enjoy, and if you can do something you can enjoy that makes you money, even fucking better, which is why I love doing my 3D printing stuff, and like I do like a lot of the stuff. I do some stuff in the film industry as well. I fucking love movies, making movies and that sort of stuff, making fucking money off it, making a profit off it, which I think that is almost a sort of like the sort of like answer to life, almost to a degree. It's just like if you can do something that you enjoy, and you can live off that. Or even like, I'm not making like dumb amounts of fucking money off it, but I'm earning enough that I don't have to get like a job at Kmart or something like that. And I'm quite fucking happy with that. And I think, yeah, that's sort of just like my sort of interpretation of just like living, especially.
Yeah, I agree with you there. When I'm going about the profit, I don't mean like you and me and our, so forth, just having money for food and to enjoy ourselves and just to kind of like live our lives. I mean like the mining companies, the oil companies, the ones that are like harming our planet for profit, to have just gross amounts of greed. And that's like a massive imbalance that will be balanced at the end of the day. So it's not like a dig on like most people that are going to earn money to have a house and stuff like that. It's more about like the corporations that are greedy, that
Yeah. It's those damn politicians. Which also, just like a fun fact, literally a couple months before like a lot of these fires broke out in Australia, they like literally cut like firefighter funding by like, I don't have the percentage again, so I'm talking out my ass, but I want to say it's something ridiculous, like 50%. And like literally the next month, the whole fucking country is on fire, and it's like, well, tried to save yourself a few bucks, and now look what you've done. Thanks for that.
I mean, that totally came out of nowhere and wasn't planned at all.
God damn.
Yeah.
Do you think that like stuff like that is almost like sort of like planned?
I would think so, because I mean, deliberately like cutting the funding for firefighters, and then we have these countrywide fires, and it's like these massive companies are like diverting water away from like important ecosystems, and then our ecosystems are like having mass deaths just due to like not having water. Where's all this water going? Oh, to mining companies. oh, and the mining companies have billions of dollars to bribe people. I just think that's intertwined with that somehow. I'm not gonna say I know all the answers, but I think it has something to do with it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, again, very much agree with like the whole like sort of, they're very much out for profit and their own selves. Like again, very much with the mining companies, especially going back to Papa Elon Musk again with his like shake up of the industry of like electric cars, especially. Like, people, say what you want about Tesla and Elon Musk, but he very much has like, he cares about humanity and he wants to like help the environment and that sort of stuff. And I think electric cars is very much like one of the steps towards that, and very much so the mining companies,
they're trying
they
to suppress
despise
it
them. And even like with my best experience I had with this is that I had a couple of years ago, I had my car engine fucking explode on me. Well, one, because I'm a retard and don't know how to deal with cars properly, and I don't know much about them at all. But two, I was also told to not put E10 ethanol petrol into my car, because apparently it's really bad for the engine. It builds up dirt in the fuel tank, and it's just not good for your car, even though specifically advertised, and it's definitely cheaper by a couple of cents than normal unleaded 91 fuel. It's the government has, specifically in Queensland, I think almost every other state in Australia has banned it, but the biggest mining state here in Queensland, or one of the biggest mining states, they've made it almost a legal requirement to have E10 to be available at these bowsers, even though it's just not good for your fucking car, as well. And again, it's just back to that fucking like, just who cares what happens, as long as I make my profit, who cares?
A lot of them do have that kind of attitude. It feels like, I'm not saying I know them personally, but that's what it freaking feels like from our end of things. And I think like one thing to notice is like, I feel like most people know without even having to say it, but it's like the law is not morals, and I think the morals are more important than the law, because as we've seen, like there's too many examples to like even go into where the law goes against what would be morally just in a sense, and I don't think that is. I think that needs adjustment in us as a collective, and to even just to be aware of it and to bring it into our field of awareness, that I certainly believe that morals are more important than the law. And originally, I'm pretty sure the law was created to uphold morals and to have good moral standing, but then it kind of got corrupt along the way, and I feel like it needs a bit of a readjustment.
Yeah, well, I mean, from my understanding, most of like the law comes from like the original like Christian morals and that sort of stuff, which, you know, say what you want about Christianity, whatever the hell, but like, you know, love your neighbor, whatever. That's pretty good like way to live life. I mean, you know, maybe the hating the gays thing's probably not so much a thing, and probably could use a bit of adjustment, but you know, we got there in the end. Took a whole thing. That's a whole other separate fucking thing. But yeah, I have a feeling like, yeah, a lot of it just needs to be like reevaluated and just be like, does this actually really benefit? Like, does it benefit us, or does it benefit the country that they're running? Yeah, and majority of the time the answer is, oh yeah, it benefits us.
Yeah, I get that.
But one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about as well is that you said you've been doing a lot of like astronomy sort of stuff.
Oh, not astronomy, but astrology.
Astrology, yeah.
Yeah.
I just knew there was something. And I'd love to have my my charts read.
Yeah, I did mean to do that. I looked into it. I did, but then I just got like so sidetracked with life and things. But I will still do that. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. One of the last things I like to do on my podcast is that I dub the most autistic part of the podcast, and that is, of course, where I answer questions, queries, and other stories that I think might be enjoyable from a bunch of you guys. So I have some questions that I put out a thing last night, just being like, hey, I'm having a friend on the podcast. He's into this sort of stuff. Feel free to send questions. So haven't read through these. These could be absolute garbage, so forewarning for that. There's very much a reason why I call it the most autistic part of the podcast.
Looking forward to it.
Let's see. Got a question here from a person called Ditch Witch, and they said, what sort of thoughts drove you to this lifestyle? Which I think we kind of like sort of half covered.
I think a lot of it was with the emotions that I felt and the thoughts that had to do with the emotions of feeling like a deep despair at the state of humanity, and then the thought of being like, I want to help somehow. And then it was just like that, like, I want to help improve the state of the planet, and that just kind of I just kind of developed it from there. I kind of figured what actually helps me in my life, and what can I effectively do that can help other people either directly or indirectly, of simply like doing my best to be as compassionate as I can, of like the butterfly and the snowball effect or something, you know, like the continuous, like being compassionate to one person that could make them compassionate to like 3 other people, and then so forth and so on. So that's like an indirect way of doing it. And then I have noticed how the light language genuinely and sincerely helps me in my own life. And so it's just genuinely, like, in my heart, I have a lot of love, and I love that I love, and I think from that space, yeah, I think from that attitude.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers that. A lot of these we like almost like went on a tangent talking about. There's just a one here from someone called Jack11. It says, what do you think the best solution for the sort of environmental crisis is at the moment?
I think awareness is important, because if we're not aware of it, then how would we even know that it needs sorting? And I think coming back into like our spiritual connection with nature is certainly one thing. The scientists know what they know, and that's completely valid, and we need it. But what they don't have is the spirituality of it. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I have the answers to the questions that I've been asking, or at least been searching and learning on the way. So with the environment, I suppose we can all do what we can in our ways. But then I also think it's like gradually like just like either changing the old system or breaking away from it, and continuing to know that we can change, we can choose pathways that are not there, we can create our own pathways. And the intuition is going to be your best friend every day. And that there are people that want to help, there are people that can unite, like the people are the power. And just this morning I saw this thing, there's like 1.7 million protesters gotten together in Hong Kong. And that's significant. That is very significant. Like 1.7 million people coming together to help improve the state of the planet. So it's like people are already doing it en masse, and we can be a part of that. Like the people are the power. And like for me it's awareness, because I want people to be aware of how beautiful our planet is, how magnificent we truly are as beings and as souls, even if there's like a million layers that we've put on ourselves to say that we're not, but it's layers that can, and underneath all of that is the truth. And be a warrior of love, be a warrior of truth, like hold the sword of truth, you know?
Yeah.
And just if you see something that doesn't resonate, or you think it's a lie or deception, like there's a chance it may be, but also it's, looking into it is helpful. But information, communication is powerful these days. For example, like I'm not sure how many people this may reach, but whomever this may reach is like I sincerely bless, and hope that your spirit continues to do what your spirit knows to do, because I believe that we have the answers within each of us, and it's unique for all of us. But then as a collective, the people are the power, and we need to reconnect with Mother Earth gradually. And the connection with Mother Earth is something that needs like daily attention, such as like if you want to be a bodybuilder, you got to work out, or if you want to be a musician, you got to practice, or you want to be a painter, you got to actually do it.
Yeah.
So spending time in nature is absolutely vital for us. Like nature is what like purifies our spirits, which reminds us of the goodness of life. Nature is just important, and that's the awareness that I want to get through, that the nature is important, the nature loves us, that we're welcome on this planet, we just got to take care of it.
Yeah, I think awareness is probably one of the best ways to describe it. I mean, like, it's kind of to the point now where it's kind of just like so in your face, like again with like, oh, everything's on fire, or even like, for example, like the Great Barrier Reef, like majority of that is just bleached out now from climate change and all the oils that have just been like unintentionally or intentionally dumped into that ocean surrounding there. So yeah, I think, but even just like slight correction on the Hong Kong protest thing, that's like a whole separate thing to like China regime. And them also trying to like overthrow them and take away their free speech thing. It's not so much like an environmental thing.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't read it, but I saw it and was like, wow, that's awesome. But perhaps that was me wanting to see something in it, though I still think it's significant that many people are just protesting and like uniting. I think that's the important thing, like uniting and having the wisdom to get along, even if we don't agree. That's important. That there is like a wisdom that we can continue to develop, and the wisdom will be like a little torch of knowledge that can turn into a whole bonfire that can light up the whole area, and just continue to like grow in wisdom any way that you can, gain wisdom any way that you can. Self-reflection is a way to gain wisdom, and then there's like copying, that's another way, and then there's experience. You can get wisdom from experience, but self-reflection is my favorite anyway.
Yeah. All right, I think it's about good places to end it as any. Now, I like to do a thing at the end of my podcast as well, to actually like to see who made it the whole way through this almost like hour and a half long podcast. This went by pretty quick. I like to do a thing that I call the secret phrase or word. So if someone includes this specific like word or phrase in their comment, I'll give them a little fucking heart in the comments, so I actually know they've made it the whole way through this podcast. So is there any sort of word or phrase that you'd like someone to include in their comment?
I love Gaia.
Okay, so if you did make it the whole way through this almost hour and a half long podcast, be sure to include the phrase "I love Gaia" or even just like Gaia in general. Do you have any experiences with Gaia? Did you know who Gaia was before this podcast? Let me know and I'll give you a little bloody heart. Is there any sort of social media or anything else you'd like to plug?
You can find some of my music. I'm only just beginning to upload stuff now. I don't have like an official studio, but I'm just writing pieces, sharing stuff. My YouTube is my name, honestly. My name's Robert Crawshaw, and the last name is spelled CRAWSHAW. I gotta do that so often. But yeah, if you search up my YouTube, that'll be some music in there, and I'm pretty sure I'll continue to upload stuff. This might be the bit of a jump start or like inspiration that I need to continue to continue.
Yeah. Either way, all those will be linked down in the description down below, so you don't have to try and spell out that last name especially. So yeah, if you're interested and like to see what Robert's up to, especially after this podcast, all those will be linked down below. Thanks so much for joining me, Robbie. This is a great little chat.
Thanks. I've enjoyed this so much.
Yeah. All right. Catch you later, guys.
See you.